to our motions and general business this evening. We'll start out with 10A. It's a motion to approve a conditional use permit by Red Wing Grain.
Thank you. I'm just going to identify for you tonight what the changes are that Jim Larson is here representing Red Wing Grain this evening. And since your last meeting, these are the changes that they have submitted to you. The second grain structure will be the same as the first. And when I say the same, basically the height, and I just want to go through the height. There's three heights I want to identify. First of all, the highest point is right here. That is at 126 feet. When it was presented to you and the Planning Commission previously, it was at 146 feet. The second height is at the top of the storage structure itself. That is at 121 feet, and previously that was 127 feet. The next height that's referenced is the height of basically the side wall of the structure. This is the new proposal is 70 feet. Previously it was at 96 feet. So what I've provided for you this evening are two options. One is that one that you've discussed before, motion to send this back to the Planning Commission, Advisory Planning Commission, for a new public hearing because of new information being provided. Second option is to approve it as a resolution, and I've changed the numbers in the proposed resolution this evening to correspond with these heights and basically the footprint of this second bin. I did want to just show as well the location of this, and they've submitted new information. This is a new grading site plan. So the second proposed bin is right here. It really did not change in terms of the location from the previous. So there's really not a change as far as I'm concerned, as staff is concerned, in terms of the location of the second bin. It really is the height changes that are being proposed. So I think with that, Mr. President, I'll turn it back to you and the council for any questions. And again, Jim is here as well.
We do have a couple people that want to speak. So do you have any questions for Dan before we let the people speak?
I just have a real quick one. The first numbers that you went over with that tower, can you just restate the 126 is the new height? Mm-hmm. And then what was the original?
So the 126 is the highest point of this structure. The previous proposal was 146 feet.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
To confirm, that's the same height as the current bin?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions for Dan? Okay. We will start with Katie Kroll.
I just have a quick comment as far as
I live
down by, I'm Katie, and I live down right by the grain bin. My neighbor that lives right across from the grain bin couldn't be here tonight. But we would just want to make sure that things don't get taller, noisier, dustier with the bunker there that I'm concerned they're going to be using. And I know I talked to Jim, and he kind of said it was going to be for emergency use only, but it's there, and I just want to make sure it's not dustier, louder. I mean, I walk at night, and I appreciate the people at Bryan Addition. They get the noise from the fans and everything, and because I'm on the trail side of the hill, the noise is kind of muffled from the bunker that's going to be running all the time when it's full. But when I walk the dog, I can appreciate that Kim and Lee get that noise all the time because they're right there. And I'm sure Bryan Addition people get it all the time too because the fans are over there. The fans aren't on my side, and so they're kind of muffled. But, you know, with the new one, when the fans are going for the granary, we hear that noise all the time until they stop. And so I appreciate Kim and Lee's and the Bryan Addition. They hear those fans when the bunker's full all the time. I mean, when I walk up the road at night, I frequently walk at night, so it's quiet, and, you know, the Bryan Addition and Kim and Lee, that noise is there all night, you know, all day. And I'm sure it's worse, you know, when you're trying to sleep at night. So I just want to make sure things don't get brighter as far as the lights, and it doesn't get noisier, dustier, and all of the stuff that we have talked about in the past. And I'm just thinking that if all of this stuff was going to be presented to you guys, and it was going to be in your front or backyard, would you like it there? So I just want everybody to think about that. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Jim Larson.
Good evening, council and staff. From our updated conditional use application letter, you can see the background on why we chose this site 12 years ago, and it kind of notes the complaints, and it notes how we're handling them. It also notes that we haven't had complaints in the last 12 years since we've been down there that have been brought up to our attention. I have had some complaints from our neighbors in the gravel pit, and we've addressed those, and fortunately we paved the road and we got rid of a lot of the grain or the dust from the roads and the traffic. We can stage the trucks in that area now. It shows, the application shows a little bit about our partnership with the city. It shows a little bit about our background of our business and how we serve over 1,200 customers in a 75-mile radius. Our facility downtown was built in 1955. It was expanded in 56, then again in 61 and 1995. And then we're landlocked. We don't have any more room downtown, as you guys all know. So we started this western site in 2006. It was expanded in 2011. Our business is pretty unique where it depends on the river. It depends on, you know, we deal with high water, obviously flooding, low water, lock and dam shutdowns, and late harvests. We deal with record crops in some years. This last year we dealt with China exports, lack of China exports, so we had to store more beans, we had to find more places for corn. But any business that is open only from the river open, April 15th to Thanksgiving, and it depends on the river, and it depends on the weather for crops, there's a lot of uncertainty in our business. And we just need to remain a valid option for our customers and to accommodate their needs in a short period of time. 12 years ago, this site was selected. 7 years ago, it was approved to expand our business on these 15 acres. It is zoned for this use, and that's why we built it in this area. Again, 12 years has went by, and we have not heard any comments or complaints from those above on the Bryan Addition. Not one complaint in the last 12 years until now. We are willing to work with our neighbors to address the concerns. We lowered the height from 146 to 125. We went back to the drawing board, we found that. We're going to address the issues with the dust on the bunker that we had. I stated what happened this fall with the dust in the bunker. I talked to both our neighbors in the gravel pit. You probably also have a recommendation from ABC Lumber, who is for this, because they know that it'll be less dust by having a grain bin down there. So with that, I just ask, you know, for help in this expansion of our business for over 1,200 local farmers that we may be able to serve. And if you want me to stay up here for any questions, or it's up to you.
Does anyone have any questions for Jim?
I have a couple.
Sure.
So it's just more of a technical question, I guess. So why do you need the blowers for the bunker?
Sure. So the fans on the bunker stay on to kind of basically hold the tarp down constantly. What I've addressed since the neighborhood meeting,
So is it a vacuum then?
it's basically air's flowing in on the one side and it's constantly sucking down the tarp. And if you go out there, the tarp is down there and it's pretty much on there, and there's no gap on there right now. And what I've learned is that I can shut 3 of the fans off. So there's 6 fans on there. They're 7.5 horsepower fans, versus our bin fans are 40 horsepower fans. And so I've been told that I can shut 3 of those fans off on the neighborhood side of where the messengers live. And then I just have this device that I can track to see what the pressure ratio is on the tarp. So I'm planning to do that this winter as soon as I can, to shut at least 3 of the fans off. But we've had the bunker out there for 7 of the last 12 years. We've went out there, and typically we only have the fans on when the end of November through April or May, because that's when we usually pick up the grain, in April or May. Now, every year is not able to. This last year we weren't able to get that many barges in April and May, so we had them on longer throughout the summer.
So is part of the reasoning for getting the new bin to use the bunker less often?
Correct. And use it for more emergency, or when a late harvest comes in and you can't. But it's significant more storage. You know, for example, like I said, the last 2 years, if we had a bin, we had to go out to the bunker. That's a fact. And so we need it for emergency cases. There's many places I can tell you the reasons why, but again, 7 out of 12 we have used the bunker. So 5 out of 12 we have not in the past.
Are you using it this winter?
We are using it this winter, but we would not have had to if I would have had a bin, because it was a smaller crop. Because normally what you do with the bunker is you fill it right at the end. So we would be filling it right now. This year we had to fill it 4 weeks earlier because we were full and we couldn't get barges.
Other question? Did you
Sorry.
have
I think from the community meeting we had, the major concern was the noise.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dust. And you said you're installing the mineral
dust,
oil?
The dust from the bunker is not the dust from the grain bins, but it's the dust from the bunker. And it was significantly worse this fall.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And it was because we filled the bin and then filled the bunker with that bin corn. Normally we fill the bunker at the end of the fall with the farmer corn directly from the field. So and we filled it in 4 days.
Okay.
So that's number one. Number two is the concern of noise. You know, the only noise that we have, you know, besides normal truck traffic during the fall, we're down there for about we'll be down there for about 45 days right now. And then we pull it out, and we're probably down there for about a month and a half again when we pull out the grain. So there'd be truck traffic noise, and it's approximately 6 to 10 trucks an hour that come through there. But as far as the noise, the bin themselves have 4 fans on, and we run them for about 2 weeks. And we'll start them up probably next week or this week and run them for a week or 2. But I've already talked to the neighbors down there. I haven't heard from them in the past on it, but I wanted to experiment with them to say, do you want me to run them during the day or at night to help them? But those fans, you know, that would be a long ways to go all the way up and around to the Bryan addition. The Bryan addition also, you know, we're down 40 feet. So those fans to go up over 40 feet and go across Highway 61 with the traffic, I don't know. I haven't been over there to see if I can hear it, you know. But maybe they can. But that's a long ways, you know, to hear it over to Highway 61 traffic.
The bunker fans are running nonstop. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you had the bin, you would use the bunker less, and the fan isn't running nonstop.
Correct. They wouldn't
Okay,
be running
I just
on the
wanna be
bunker.
clear.
Correct.
Okay. And you said you are going to be doing the mineral spray?
Mineral oil will be installed this summer. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And we have that downtown. So you'll know when we load our barges downtown and, you know, we're right in the middle of downtown, we don't have a lot of dust, and so that should help that substantially when we go out to the bunker.
Okay, and you use those on the bins too?
We use it going into the bins
Okay.
downtown, and we use it, yep.
Okay.
Questions?
Yeah, of your 7 years that you used the bunker.
Yep.
If you had this bin, how many years would you have still had to gone into the bunker? Because as you just said, the bunker is a greater volume.
Yeah, so the bunker is less volume than this bin.
Okay.
So this bin would hold a couple 100,000 more bushels. So I gave you the example, the last 2 years is off the top of my head, right? Because I can remember that. In the previous years, we filled that, the first few years, we filled it actually in the summertime when we couldn't get barges at all. Since we built that bin that's sitting out there now, we've never filled it. We've only filled it in the fall, the bunker in the fall now. So that's helped out that we don't have to do it in the summertime, that type of thing. But for me to go back and see the other 5 years, it would be hard for me to say, you know, it'd be a guess to say maybe another 3 years. But I know at least 3 of the years we filled it in the summer. But we haven't filled it in the summer since we built that bin out there. So that's a pretty good, you know, caliber.
But it has more volume. The new bin would have more volume. than
Yes,
the
it has, it can fit more than the bunker.
bunker. Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Evan?
So originally, that bunker was sort of, as I understand it, looking back through the record, was a temporary solution. And originally, when the CUP was approved, there was some discussion at that point about removing that bunker. And it just kind of continues. And so is it temporary or is it just?
It's considered in our, you know, so we have to have permanent storage and we can be labeled temporary storage, okay? Because a temporary storage isn't a structure that you want to keep year after year for government purposes, if you had government grain, for example. So that's how it's labeled on our storage capacity, as temporary storage. So we typically we've never carried it longer than a year, versus in a bin you can carry it, you know, if circumstances come around. We've carried grain longer than a year. Typically we're carrying that grain 6 to 9 months, and then we're taking it out. So that's why the term temporary storage, when we built that, that's the reason we have that. For those situations where, especially when you're at the end, this would be a perfect year. Let's just say harvest was still going on and we couldn't get barges, because barges leave town November or Thanksgiving. 95% of the time they're out of town. And there's still harvest going on. And we have a million more bushels to come in because it's a late harvest. That's when we would use that as that temporary storage and fill it later. That's the reason, you know, the more of the reason they have it.
You said at the community meeting that you would be open to having to come to council to approve use of the bunker. Are you still favorable to that?
You know, and that's before I put all this other, you know, I ended up, we're going to put mineral oil on it, so we're going to invest in that bunker. If we have to go to the bunker, we're going to put mineral oil on it, and we're going to put some spouts in several spots on that to prevent that, to help that dust control. And so right now, if we have that, you know, I can easily go to my neighbors and tell them, I told them that last week when I met with them down there. I said, I can go to you and say, this is the reason we're coming up and this is the reason we have to go, but to go through another path to get approval, I'm telling you right now, the reasons that we would go are already listed in your sheet. There would be no other reasons besides big harvest, late harvest, can't get barges, you know, those are the type of reasons that you go. So it's either those reasons or we wouldn't go. So what I learned from the meeting is that I can be more open communication with them on when we put the fans on the bin, when we go to the bunker and why, and so they can be prepared and saying, hey, you know, that type of thing. As a neighbor, we're there already. So we want to be good neighbors and we want to fix the problem, you know, that we have. But again, we've been there for 12 years and we haven't heard from the other side of Highway 61 at all.
Until this year.
Until this went through. My two neighbors down there, I respect them. I met with them both last week, and we can agree to disagree on certain things, but we will try to fix, even if this bin does not get passed today, we'll still have the bunker there. And we're going to try to fix that solution that happened this fall.
Did you have?
Question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, I mean, is it feasible to, and I don't want to start re-engineering your project for you, but I mean, can you put like an acoustic housing over the blowers to do something to dampen the noise? Because I would think that 24-hour white noise would really be annoying.
Yeah. You know, like I said, I'm looking into shutting 3 of them off, so the 3 that would only have would be on the Highway 61 side. We can look at putting something, you know, as long as the fan is, you know, if you put something in front of a fan to buffer that noise,
Yeah.
as long as it doesn't ricochet off that buffer. But, you know, I can look into that for sure, to look into something to dampen the buffer or experiment with it.
And I do want to comment that you have been very responsive. You know, you've been very sensitive to all the questions, and you've been really cooperative, I think, and a really good business neighbor for the community.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Have any questions? Just had a comment.
Okay.
I agree with John wholeheartedly. You went out of your way to mitigate what you've heard. And I was at the Planning Commission meeting, and it was tough because you, me, and I'm being the council member for that area, had never heard any complaints either. And you kind of got inundated that night, and I applaud you for taking it and running with it and trying to get all of those mitigated. The one thing I wanted to, just to make sure, this is kind of what Becky was getting at, and I don't think you actually answered it. I didn't think you answered it properly, but if you did, I apologize. Is that by installing this bin, your chances of using that bunker are like 30%, depending on the year, less than what you're using it now.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
I would say, definitely I would say that, you know, off the top of my head. If I had to grab a number, it would be, you know, another 30% less, yeah.
Okay.
Now, if that's, again, what are the circumstances, high water, low water, all that, but I'm just saying, yes, I would say there's a chance that, there's a good chance that it would be another third less, yes.
Yep. And the other thing is, this is getting to Aaron's comment, I would like the city to be at least notified. I like to know when I'm going to get phone calls. So if you're going to use the bunker, I'd like to, if we're going to do this, I'd like to make that a stipulation that at least you notify the city before you use it.
I know, I Googled this, and there are other grain operations that have had to pay out for disturbing the peace because of the noise.
There's a certain decimal amount that you have, and
Have you had
I know
that
that we're in
tested?
the threshold right today. I know we're in the threshold okay today. But they're 7.5 horsepower fans, so they're not, you know, huge noise. Now, can it go, you know? So again, one of the things that I want to do is, I've talked to both the neighbors about, is, you know, reducing to 3, you know, having 3 instead of 6. There's 6 fans out there. I can look into the buffering, you know, like you said, on front of the fans. But so, yeah, we're in a restriction downtown too. You know, we're downtown and we have a grain dryer and we have a, you know, we're loading out a lot more equipment is downtown than out there. Tons.
But people expect noise downtown.
I don't know about that.
No.
I think we'd hear even more. I mean,
I agree. I
got-
think you would too.
Downtown, we'd hear more.
Yeah.
we got people walking right under our grain facility downtown every day. So,
Okay.
One last, Jim, broadly, is the amount of acreage being in agriculture in your region here growing, or is it pretty stable?
more crops are growing in corn and soybeans, obviously, than wheat. Wheat was the capital of the world here back in the obviously, so there's a lot more yield on corn. There's more corn growing. Right now, yields have been really good the last 3 years. The previous two, we didn't even fill the bin 4 years ago. We didn't even fill that bin out there. So we had 2 years in a row of poor crops, and we've had 3 years in a row of really good crops. This year was just okay. But more hay, dairy land people are going into crops and getting rid of it because it's not profitable in dairy. And so there is more crops growing. And the yield has been very, very strong. So
Thank you.
that affects us firsthand.
So Jim, you say that the new bin proposed would be larger than the bunker.
Yes.
And so I guess I'm unclear why exactly that would, the temporary, shouldn't the use of the temporary storage be almost never?
Tell me when the water is not too high, and tell me when we can't get barges, and tell me when the harvest is so late in the year that we don't have any barges, then I can, you know what I'm saying? We have uncertainty.
But wouldn't you just put it in that bin? Is that not the case? Am I missing something?
No, you got it. That's what he just got. That's why I asked that question again, is because he'd put it in the bin instead of using the bunker. The
Right,
bunker
but-
would only be used
But if the
on,
bunker is larger in all cases,
no, it's not. The bunker's 300,000
I mean, the bin is
less.
larger
Yeah.
in all cases, wouldn't you just put it in the bin?
That's what I'm saying. I'd put the grain in the bin, and we wouldn't have to go to the bunker. So we would never go to that bunker. Both of our bins would have to be plump full, and our downtown would have to be plump full, and we would be, very at the end of the season. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I think you had said something like 30%. So, I mean, I think Evan's point is
It should be almost never.
almost never. I mean,
One out of 3 years is never? Or what do you mean?
I'm just, I'm trying to understand what the bunker is offering that the new bin doesn't already offer greater than the bunker.
So, for example, harvest starts September 15th. We start dumping out there September 15th. We start dumping downtown September 15th. We start loading out barges September 15th, right?
Sure.
Harvest keeps coming in, right? First beans come in, then corn comes in, right? We keep loading out barges. We keep loading corn. There's a 3-week window where it rains. This fall it was 2-week, right? Harvest is delayed. Then harvest starts coming again, right? Then all of a sudden there's a 2-week delay. We had a snowstorm. And all of a sudden it's Thanksgiving time. A third of the crop's in the field. We have room in one of the bins down there. We'll fill that bin up first, right? We can't ship any more barges. So what do we do with we have 1 million more bushels to come in. We'd go to the bunker.
That's what you would do now. And if you had a second bin, you go to the second bin, correct? So I'm asking essentially why doesn't the second bin completely alleviate the need for the bunker?
What I'm saying is there's circumstances that can change, that can delay your harvest, and all of a sudden you need that because our business depends on barges going outbound, right?
Yes.
And let's say there's high water. We can't get barges. Let's say we go through 2 weeks of flooding like that. Let's say we go through 2 weeks of rain. We can't get barges. So the later the harvest goes.
That I understand. I guess what I'm saying is you would say right now, if nothing changed and you had those circumstances, you would go to the bunker.
Yeah.
If nothing changes. And I don't think this is odd. What exactly does the bunker offer you now that the bin doesn't? Because you are going to create way more capacity with this additional bin and the bunker than you currently have. And even if you just put the bin in, that's more capacity than you currently have.
Yeah.
Is that not correct?
Yeah, and so okay, one other thing huge aspect that I haven't talked about is the efficiency of going to a bin versus a bunker.
Okay.
Going to the bunker is huge risk because like this year, we filled it in 4 days, right? There's rain coming, so there's weather risk to damage that grain or to get that. And when you fill that bunker, and when you reclaim that bunker, it all has to go out by trucks and a payloader, okay? That's very labor intensive.
Okay.
If it comes out of that bin, I'm sorry, that's where, okay, I get where you're coming. So the efficiency of coming out of the bin, it's just a conveyor over to overhead, you're done. It makes my guys at work, their life 100% better, okay? And efficiency. And less cost, and less tarping, and less worrying about that tarp, that type of thing. So the efficiency is number one. I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay.
Well, and I think part of the question that I got out of that, and I know you guys kind of talked about that 30%, like how often do you think you would have to use the bunker? And I know that these are estimates, as you said, barges and weather conditions and harvest conditions are all variable. But that question I keep coming back to that. If your bin is a greater capacity than the bunker, if you had both bins, let me ask it this way. Currently, with one bin and one bunker, has that met your needs in the last 12 years? So those 7 times that you have had to go to the bunker, that has met your needs?
On the years that we needed it, again, 3 of those 7, we filled it in the summertime.
Right.
So we could actually kind of throw that out right now. But so then it'd come down to 4 out of the 12. And I just told you 2 out of the 12, we went to filled it, right? The last 2. I can't remember the other 2. That has helped, the bin has helped us tremendously as our business. I mean, to be able to dump, we dump 300 trucks a day. We dump maybe 80 down there and 220 downtown. We have, if anyone has seen our bean harvest, we have the coal yard is full of trucks because we can't handle beans fast enough. And so some of this could go to beans out there at times if we needed to, but most of the time it's going to go to corn out there. And it has helped us tremendously to have that capacity out there. And so what we're hoping for is to speed up the process and to get us more efficient with 2 bins. And then the bunker is our emergency storage. And so, yes, I can't say enough for those that were here and helped us pass it in 2000. I mean, it's helped our business tremendously to handle the volume. We're doing about 1/3 more volume that we did. We can't keep growing. If we put this bin in, and it's been asked many times, how many more bins can you fit? We can only fit 1 more bin in, and now that we made this one bigger, it's going to be tough because we won't go as high. We know that we got this limit here, right? So it'd be a narrower bin and it wouldn't go as high, so it's more expense for us to do that. But there's only 1 more bin that can fit down there because I think these guys know the landscape down there and how you have stormwater runoff plans and everything like that. That's why we have 15 acres. So it would be very difficult to put 1 more bin in, and obviously I'd have to come back to you, and it might be a new council at that time, but I don't foresee that for a while. Did I see it in 2011? No, I didn't see it at that time. But then we started to use that bunker more often in the last 3 or 4 years, and it's kind of like, boy, it'd be nice to have another bin, So, yeah, good question.
Jim, I have a question. I mean, have you considered, instead of just doing another large bin, doing 2 smaller bins, and that way you could have a conveyor system? You wouldn't have to have a conveyor system. You could just gravity feed the other 2 bins. So instead of having another 1.3 million bushel bin, let's say you had, and it's an arbitrary number, say you had an 800,000 bushel bin and a 500,000, and then you get rid of the hockey rink. It's like,
Someone brought up that the last time when we built the bin out there is, why don't you build several smaller bins instead of 1? And when you bury in a narrower bin to fit more bushels in it, you got to go higher. So for example, the bin that I was putting in, it was 135 and 135 feet wide. This one's 156 feet wide, and that one was 135, and we were gonna be 20 feet higher, you know, to get 200,000 less bushels than this one in. You have to go higher to get capacity. So then, yeah, you could build 2 or 3 narrower bins, but you have the cost of all the equipment under them bins and all the equipment to go over it versus just one conveyor, and more motors and more. So the expense to put more bins in, it's a higher
it's just not an
expense.
option.
Efficiency is part of it, and cost.
But I mean, you're at the point now where if you were going to grow again, and it's great that you're growing, by the way, you'd have to get rid of the temporary storage.
Someday we may have to, if we wanted to, but the layout of it right now, we kind of max out there at a certain point, because at the end of the harvest, you know who the last one that's harvesting usually? Wisconsin. So they got to come across the bridge and go out there. So they're not real likely, they don't like going out, you know, another 6 miles out. And so, you know, it's hard to build a lot more storage out there. They like to come downtown. So that's why we split the difference, and it has worked out very well for the Minnesota guys on that side.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right. Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
We have 2 options before us this evening with this. One is to send it back to the Planning Commission. And one is to approve it. No.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 7307.
I'll second it.
We got a motion by Ralph, second by Dean to adopt Resolution 7307. Any discussion? Dean?
The discussion on the sending it back to the Planning Commission, it's less, in all aspects, it's less. It's not more that they're asking for. It's less. And in this case, I don't think I really don't think, the information we got is less, and it affects the neighbors more so than, sending it back to the Planning Commission. I don't think we're going to get an end result that's different than what they said the first time, because they're actually doing more, and it's less of in my opinion, it's less of a project. So that's just my opinion.
Evan?
My only comment about this is that, you know, it's been talked about, you know, even in the last conditional use permit process to remove that bunker. That is the, you know, flashpoint for all the issues, and I would support that and support putting in the second the second elevator for sure. I can really see the value. The second elevator has way more capacity, so it should, you know, deal with the loss of the bunker. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, just as far as, Dean, as far as the Planning Commission goes too, the CUP is only required because of the height, and the height is much less, so I see no need to send it back to the Planning Commission.
Other discussion?
Were there any conditions that the Planning Commission kicked back? Suggested there's something about,
Yeah, they have 2.
Just the
One
ones
create a
that are in
lighting
here.
plan, and then one regarding the vegetative buffer.
nothing about the noise though, right?
No.
Nothing about the noise. Was that raised at all, Dan, during the Planning Commission discussion?
First of all, I was not at that meeting, so I'm giving you some
think it
recollection
was.
that I saw.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
Yeah,
mentioned?
I was going to say there, I would assume there was discussion about that.
Actually, I think Mr. Larson has addressed everyone, to the best he could, every one of the concerns. The dust being the biggest one, the height, and it sounds like he's addressing the noise to the best. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but it's way better than having those 6 fans on. If I lived across from that, I think that would be the number one thing for me. But Katie showed me a picture of her pond, and I was appalled how much was in there. I mean, it was that thick of grain dust. So that's got to get mitigated. I mean, that was awful, just plain awful. And I was the one that took the photos and the video of all the dust coming out the day they were filling that bin. I don't know if everybody got a chance to see them. I had passed it on to staff, so.
I saw it in person.
Yeah, that's what I did. I wanted to go out there. I got a phone call about it, and I went right out there and took a look. With those things being mitigated, I think we're getting a far better result than what we did if we would have tried to discuss this and do this prior to that neighborhood meeting. That was a very good idea. A lot of things came up there. Gave Mr. Larson and his business a chance to, try and mitigate as much of it as possible. And what is it, about 60% of the time, 7 years out of 12, you've went to the bin, 30% less, that knocks it down to about 25% of the time you'll be using it versus, because you got 300,000 more bushel that can go into this bin than what the bunker holds too. And there's virtually no dust with a bin. So.
Other comments, discussion?
I agree that the bin, from what I heard, watching the advisory planning commission meeting and listening to the neighbors speak and then going to the neighborhood meeting, I agree that I think that the bin addresses a lot of the issues that they brought up. The fan running constantly in the bunker, the dust, the noise of the machinery using the bunker. My only couple of concerns is, a couple of the things that aren't going to be resolved is that they already have a grain bin in their backyard as part of their view. That's going to continue to exist, that they have one. We're now adding a second one that it's going to be visible. And I'm a little bit concerned that the bunker, I get it, that it's temporary storage and it's sort of, it's emergency storage. I liked Jim's idea at the neighborhood meeting about saying, can we present some sort of conditions? I don't know how much the city council really wants to sort of get into that, but I understand that for the neighbors, that they kind of want to know that there's some protection. If we're trying to reduce the use of the bunker and approving this, what's that threshold? Or is that just going to be, is it growing and it's just going to be used 7 out of the next 12 years in addition to the 2 bins? That's my concern for the residents.
Well, one of my main concerns is if this bunker does not get approved.
You mean the bin?
The bin.
Or the bin, they're going to use the bunker all the time.
Okay.
And that's the problem, is the bunker. That's the problem. So we're adding another bin to take care of the major problem. The major problem is the bunker. It's still going to be there. Occasionally it's going to get used, but the vast majority of our problems with the neighbors go away with another bunker, especially that dust. That's my main thing.
Noise.
Yeah, and for those of you that are new, if this does get voted, I'm just letting everybody know this, if this does get voted down, they cannot reapply for a year for another one. They can't come back and reapply for a whole year. So we're really, I'm not saying that's the reason we should be trying to approve this. I'm just letting some of the new people know that's kind of the rules.
But is that true? That's true if they don't change anything, right? I mean, if they
if the city council votes it down, they can't reapply.
Even if you modify the plans.
Can't reapply for a year on a conditional use permit.
I didn't know that, so I'm glad you told me that.
So there's the potential, if we don't pass this, that residents are going to have to put up with the bunker for another summer.
Or 2.
Or 2.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think they've done the best job that they could do to mitigate these problems.
Thank you for clarifying that.
What's interesting, Becky had a good point. You know, it does have a big presence, and it sneaks up on you. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out why it has this presence. And I realized when I was watching the Thanksgiving Day parades in New York City, when they have the giant inflatables, when you're down looking up, it's impressive. But if you're on the first or second floor and you're looking on the belly button of something that large, it's really impressive. So there's kind of a visual, and the neighbors across 61 are above 61 by quite a ways, really. So they're actually looking down. They're seeing more of it than you even see from the highway.
Correct.
Is there landscaping being planned for across the highway at all?
Not across the highway, but there is a plan in this one here to add more up on top if needed.
So, I mean, I completely agree with you, Dean, that the bin alleviates the need for the bunker, but that's exactly what I'm saying, which is it alleviates the need for the bunker. And I'm happy, I think the bin, it is a big presence, and I can see that, but that's not what the neighbors there complained about. So, if...
I agree. I just don't want to go through another year like what I seen this year, which was bad.
Sure.
Is the reasoning for having that 1 year just so that you're not dealing with something perpetually, or?
I haven't got a clue why that's in there.
It's interesting.
All I know is that if it gets turned down by the city council, they cannot reapply for 1 year. Brian might have an idea.
Right.
The reason for that is so that you don't get the same application over and over and over, month after month. That's the main reason for that.
Great. Any other discussion? So, roll call. We have a motion by Ralph, second by Dean, to adopt resolution number 7307. Roll call.
Buss?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Norton?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Hove?
Aye.
Beisey?
Aye.
Rodigis?
Aye.
7